1990 and opened her own store. Her sales quadrupled and her income took off. A major reason? She says Decorating Den's prices are up to 20 to 30% higher.
I can get a better discount, so I can pass that on to the consumer.
Decorating Den says its door-to-door service justifies the higher cost. But there's no dispute. The company has seen a lot of turnover. Almost 240 franchisors suspended operations last year, and in the last 3 years, another third left the system altogether. But for every Barbara Edwards, there's been someone willing to take her place. The company expects to sell 264 franchises this year, and each time collect another franchising fee. What did you get out of this experience with Decorating Den?
Some very hard feelings is what I got.
What makes Decorating Den somewhat unique in the world of franchising is that 98% of its franchisees are women. Company Chief Jim Bugg believes many quit because they underestimate just how hard it will be.
And people come into it with high expectations. And when it doesn't work out for them, they realize that it is hard work, long hours. It is something they did not expect.
These women say that they worked hard, that they put in more time and more energy and got...
Well, I certainly...
We're unable to make a living out of it.
I certainly can understand their feelings about that, and whenever things have not worked out for me, I've never been able to blame myself either.
Bugg said he is always trying to improve his system. He even offered the ex-franchisees we spoke with a chance to return.
They should come back today and get involved with it and let us show them our new business systems and show them how to make money on that.
You're going to sell them another Decorating Den franchise?
No,
Because they left.
I would give them a franchise.
So, Roberta, did anybody take him up on it?
They all said no thanks, that they don't think that they can make any money with a Decorating Den franchise.
Well, if the disclosure book tells you all about the risks, why did some of the problems come as such a surprise?
Well, the book does list the various startup costs. It even contains the names of franchisees who've left the system. But some claim they never got the book before they paid their money. Decorating Den says that's not true. And others admit they had so much trust in Decorating Den, they didn't read it.
Thank you, Roberta. Still ahead. An entire nation gave up on these children, but one extraordinary young man says he'll never give up.
I have to ask his family, is John a saint?
But next, why should picking the right pain reliever be such a pain in the neck?
Advil, Nuprin, Motrin IB, and Excedrin IB. Are they all different drugs?
Good question, Edie. Take 2 aspirin and see me right after this. If you had a headache in 500 BC, you had 2 choices. You could bang your head against a rock or run out and get some willow bark. This stuff, which contains the ingredient found in aspirin, was guaranteed to help. Today, we're luckier. We have scores of products to choose from. But are we luckier? How do you know which one to choose? When you hear what Edie Magnus has to say, you may decide it's easier to pick the right rock.
Have you picked a pain reliever lately? It's so incredibly confusing. There are 4-hour, 8-hour, 12-hour strengths, combination formulas, enteric-coated, buffered. There are tablets, caplets, gel caps, liquid, even gum. There are formulas for daytime, nighttime. It's enough to give you a headache anytime. And how much do we really know about these over-the-counter painkillers? For instance, which is stronger, extra strength or maximum strength?
They're just 2 terms for the same thing.
And what about these? Advil, Nuprin, Motrin IB, and Excedrin IB. Are they all different drugs?
Absolutely not. I mean, it's all the same product.
Here's a product made by Bayer. Bayer makes aspirin, right? But this says aspirin-free.
It's Bayer, non-Bayer. It's right. Bayer, not Bayer.
Right. People, generally speaking, don't even know what they're swallowing a lot of times. They're swallowing a brand name. This is the People's Pharmacy with Joe and Terry Graydon. We welcome your calls.
North Carolina pharmacologist Joe Graydon is host of the syndicated radio show called The People's Pharmacy. Graydon makes his living sorting out consumer confusion about over-the-counter drugs, including the 150 or so pain relievers now on pharmacy shelves.
They really all boil down to 4 basic ingredients. There's your aspirin, acetaminophen, then there's the ibuprofens, and of course the newest one, which is naproxen, known by the brand name Aleve. And beyond those 4, I mean, there really are no differences.
The reality, he says, is that all these painkillers work equally and effectively against everyday aches and pains.
In other words, 2 aspirins, 2 acetaminophen, 2 ibuprofens, they will all take away your headache, relieve your backache, relieve your sprain or your strain, about the same.
So how did it get so complicated? How did we go from 4 basic compounds to 150 products? It happened in part because of a uniquely American phenomenon, our love affair with anything that says new and improved.
When somebody comes along and says, this one is better, this one is stronger, this one is faster, this one is longer, we're always ready to jump ship. The companies are very good at selling the sizzle and not the steak, and we're just lapping it up.
Lapping it up to the tune of more than $2.6 billion every year. Pain is one of the most pervasive problems in the U.S. 120 million people take an over-the-counter analgesic in any given month. For the drug makers, that's a prescription for profit.
Well, that's the American way, in the sense that the American genius is to take something that might have a minute or even imaginary advantage and find the sort of unique selling proposition that you can imbue the product with.
I like this.
Charles Mann and Mark Plummer are the authors of a book chronicling the often vicious struggle for dominance among the makers of painkillers. It's called The Aspirin Wars. Emphasis on wars.
We know that Ford and GM don't really get along, but Ford relatively rarely puts commercials on the air saying, we are better than GM, naming them by name.
I asked my doctor to recommend something for a headache. He said 2 Advil relieve tough headache pain better than 2 extra-strength Tylenol gel caps.
To varying degrees, every NSAID brand can sometimes cause the side effect of stomach irritation. Tylenol won't.
I said to my sister, if Tylenol's so great for backaches and fever and stuff, why do you buy Excedrin for headaches?
You have people essentially vying for decades for superiority, selling virtually identical products.
Faster, better, stronger, longer lasting. Are these outright lies?
Well, back in the old days, it was a lot easier to say they were close to outright lies. A good example was Excedrin. When Excedrin first came out, they said
50% stronger than an aspirin for relief of headache pain.
Well, that sounds like they've got something in there that is different from plain old aspirin. Well, what they had was a bigger tablet.
See what happens when a headache strikes.
In 1954, the makers of Anacin came up with this commercial called The Pounding Hammers.
In a sort of totally crude way, it showed, the nightmare headaches.
Aspirin, even with buffering, has only 1 pain reliever.
Plus, it had not 1, but 3 magic ingredients, one of which is no longer sold, the other which is caffeine and has no measurable effect,
Nevertheless, the creator of the $8,400 commercial boasted that it made more money for the makers of Anacin in 7 years than the movie Gone with the Wind made in 25.
So take Bayer aspirin for fast relief whenever a headache strikes.
Bayer would talk about how fast it worked. Now, did they have any evidence that dissolving faster in the stomach would relieve your headache faster? Well,
in fact, claims about offering the fastest relief have been illegal since 1984. The feds have been taking on America's analgesic makers for 60 years over false advertising claims.
This is the record of the FTC cases against 3 over-the-counter painkiller companies.
These boxes contain just some of the paperwork generated by legal wrangling over such things as the fast, faster, fastest debate. Chris White of the Federal Trade Commission.
The important fact about these cases is that they resulted in a Federal Trade Commission order that requires that the company have adequate scientific support for the claims that it makes.
Does that mean today's ads speak the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Well, they're stretching it a little bit.
Tylenol, the pain reliever hospitals use most.
That may be true, but Mann and Plummer say the stretch here is that Tylenol is offered to hospitals at big discounts.
New Aleve. All day strong, all day long.
True, but longer acting doesn't necessarily mean better pain relief. And you're limited to 1 pill a day of this former prescription arthritis medicine because of concerns about overdose.
For my tough headaches, Advil just works better.
The stretch here?
The fact is that ibuprofen is stronger for like totally severe pain of, the kind where you chop your hand off with a chainsaw type of pain. They'll give you ibuprofen. But most people really, around the house don't experience that too often.
Ironically, the profusion of all these new brands has cut deeply into sales of America's tried and true pain reliever, aspirin. Its market share has shrunk to 22%, even though studies show it's the only analgesic that can reduce the risk of heart attacks. So how do you know what to take? Experts say you should take what works for you, because all of these painkillers are safe and effective for the vast majority of people who use them. Be mindful of side effects, of course, and know what you're swallowing. But some people really will do better taking one product versus another, and nobody really knows why. It could be your biochemistry, or it could be psychological. Some people just believe in a particular brand, and that seems to do the trick. Why can't someone do a big study that could figure out once and for all which of these is better for which things? Dr. William Beaver is a professor at Georgetown University and has been studying analgesics for 30 years.
These studies are very difficult to do because how do you go about measuring pain?
Because your headache may be very different from my headache?
That's right. There is no way of doing the ultimate study comparing the big four drugs out there now and getting a final judgment as to which is better for everybody.
And that may be precisely how the drug companies like it. Since there are no clear losers in the aspirin wars, everybody wins. Sort of.
What worries me the most is that we have become so gullible as a society, and we have embraced, all of these products without a critical eye, without questioning the possibility that we're being manipulated.
And if that thought doesn't cause you some pain, come along with Joe to the pharmacy and consider how much more you're shelling out for those brand names than for generics.
And what we're talking about here is ibuprofen. I don't care whether it's the Motrin IB, the Nuprin, the Advil, or here we have the house brand ibuprofen. Now that's $4.89 for 50 tablets. Let's take a look at 50 Motrin IBs and find out what it's cost.
Let's see, 50 coated Motrin IBs are $7.63.
Okay. And this is $4.89, absolutely identical.
These are the same things?
Same drug. Buffered aspirin. We've got 100 tablets, 325 milligrams strength, and the price is $2.99 for 100.
Now this is Bufferin,
right?
Which is also 100 tablets of buffered aspirin,
right?
And this is $8.89.
Right.
So what's the difference between these two things, except for cost?
Brand name. People are used to brand name toilet paper. It's stronger, it's firmer, it's softer. I love it. But there's no law that requires toilet paper to be identical. There is a law that prescription and over-the-counter drugs must be identical, both the generic and brand name. When it comes to drugs, the law says identical.
While all of these products appear to work equally well for mild to moderate pain, there is evidence that menstrual cramps and inflammation respond better to ibuprofen and naproxen than to aspirin or acetaminophen. Connie?
Edie, you mentioned side effects. What are they?
Well, aspirin, ibuprofen, and naproxen can all cause stomach irritation and, in rare cases, intestinal bleeding. And some people are allergic to them. Also, aspirin has been linked to Reye syndrome in children under 16 if they take it when they have the flu or chicken pox. Now, acetaminophen, a lot of folks assume that it is free of side effects. However, in fact, it's been shown that in high doses, acetaminophen can cause liver damage, especially among heavy drinkers. Connie, these are all powerful drugs, but again, if used properly, these four painkillers are safe and effective.
All right. Thank you, Edie. Coming up, a young man who's making miracles happen for kids, and a woman who made a miracle happen for herself. When Eye to Eye continues in a moment, two people who refuse to believe the odds. They call him Uncle John, the young man from America who's saving one life at a time. And Eileen Doman couldn't please her customers.
Doing hair was not her field.
So she decided to please herself. And guess who had the last laugh?
Oh, that's me.
see their faces on television every night. Orphans in strange lands who have been stranded by war or poverty and left to struggle on their own. For most of us, those faces disappear with the flick of a channel. But Russ Mitchell wants you to meet a remarkable young man who couldn't look away. Russ?
Connie, I met a 26-year-old who is single-handedly changing things in a country that has had trouble handling change. These are the children of the new Russian Revolution, of a democracy that doesn't quite work. They are children of the street. Runaways. Orphans. There are now more than 50,000 kids like this in Moscow alone. Here in the new Russia, it is an American who has come to the rescue. So what's a nice kid from New Jersey doing in a place like this?
That's what I want to know also.
You ever ask yourself that question?
Yeah, a lot, every day.
When the Soviet Union collapsed, the rest of the world watched. But something touched John Varoli. He left a high-paying job, planning to spend 3 months in Moscow. That was 2 years ago.
For the adults, it's just about hopeless. For the children, it's possible to save the children.
John Varoli is trying to save the children one at a time. He shares his food, finds them clothes, gets them medical attention.
I'm one person. I can only pick a few people, maybe say 20 or 30 children. And I can really work with them intensively.
Underneath Pushkin Square, in this gray corner of hell, John finds a homeless mother. She's hungry. Galia has 3 daughters.
Okay, she said maybe we take a look at how the kids are working right now. They're working right now? They should be, yeah.
They're not too proud to beg. She thinks they have no other choice.
They think this is their lot in life. They think they were given this situation, and that's the way they're supposed to live. They're very fatalistic.
So when her kids are out here in the street begging, she does nothing to discourage them.
No, it's the only way they can survive.
But one of Galia's daughters, 11-year-old Natasha, is getting too old to beg. John wants to get her out of Moscow before it's too late.
Imagine a young girl without a place to live, without education. What can she really do? And of course the answer is only prostitution. He literally runs around the city.
And this is Vladimir, 9 years old and homeless.
Has he ever gone